Thank you so much, Zach, for joining us here on the Dwellynn Show. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I cannot wait to, dig in here with Zach. Thank you so much, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I certainly look to bring your audience some value, and we can kind of walk through my type of journey and see how I can help others.
Awesome. I mean, I think you're already helping, the dual listener here, because I'm looking at a Canva behind you, and it's got mindset is everything. And every time somebody like reaches out to me or say, "Hey, Ola, can we grab lunch? I just want to pick your brains or whatever." And I always tell them it's all about the mindset. I always say that, but folks really typically struggle to understand what that really means, but I think you're already bringing value anyway, but I'm sure you can do a way better job than I can. Can you just tell our dual listeners a little bit more about you and kind of what you've been up to lately?
Sure. Yeah. So, I buy and sell property around the country. I have a family business, smartrealestatecoach.com, where we help out what we call associates. So we lock arms with people and we help them buy and sell property around the country. So we primarily focus on like rent to own, lease purchase, owner financing, terms deals, which we can certainly get into a little bit more on that end. But we've created this coaching and associate programs because we've seen a huge gap in the market where people are just selling programs and then not doing deals. So we really wanted to create full immersion. So if we have the ability to lock arms with people and work in the trenches, that's certainly what we do. And we tend to stick with the terms market because of the '08 debacle. So my father-in-law Chris, who's been on this podcast before, was in real estate during that time frame. So it was not a fun time frame. So instead, we teach others, and we still buy without using our own credit or cash, or chasing investors for money as well.
Oh man, there's just so many things that you've just talked about in there. There's so many things that you've packed in there. But I think the first thing is, why real estate? Why did you get into real estate? Just kind of give us a brief kind of overview. What were you thinking? Why this business?
Yeah. So when I first opted out of college, I was 21 at the time, and now I'm 28. So it hasn't been that long of a journey just yet. But I was bartending and personal training up until I was about 25 years old, and it was a heck of fun at the time. We're down here in a very tourist-driven area, so the bars were really fun and profitable. But eventually, you burn the end on both sides of the candle. You start to get worn out. So I reached out to my father-in-law, Chris, who, we lived right down the road from each other. And I said, "Hey, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm not going to continue to bartend. I know you started this real estate business. I'd be interested in joining. And we'll see if that's a good fit or not." I honestly had no idea if I was going to like real estate. I just knew it was a heck of a lot better than what I was doing. So there was no particular reason other than I was just looking for a different avenue. And that seemed like a good opportunity at the time. And fast forward 3 years later, I've been with my team and associates around the country, well over 100 deals in less than 3 years. So looking at it from that perspective, it seemed like it was a good fit.
Definitely. I was going to say that it looks like you did like it and you did stay, right? So that's pretty good. So, you started, you joined Chris, you basically got your feet wet, you started doing deals with associates. But before we even jump into some of the deals and, kind of like your program and what you guys are doing, there's a lot of talk on, courses and coaches and seminars and all, guru kind of talk. From your, little experience in the game, you did mention this in the beginning that some people are selling a lot of courses, but they're not actually doing any deals, right? And that's kind of an epiphany for some people. They're like, "Oh, really? Yeah, you do have a lot of folks that are out there, trying to teach you how to make millions in real estate, but they've never actually done a deal or a deal that is even substantial to make you any millions." So now that you are actually, helping others and doing deals, how can folks looking for a good program differentiate between those guys that are not doing any deals and for example, you guys actually doing this and helping others do the same?
Yeah, so it's an interesting industry to be involved in, because there's a lot of selling and no results. The important, if you're going to look into a mentor, and I'm not saying we're the ones for you, as we are New Englanders through and through, and go 1,000 miles an hour and are very clear, blunt, to the point. So not everybody is gonna be cohesive with us, but what's important is when you look for a mentor, you got to look for a couple things. You got to look for, are they actually doing what they're saying they're doing? Because there's plenty of people that bought real estate 10 years ago and are still selling the same program based on 10 years ago's market. That's not going to help you now. As we all know, real estate especially is constantly evolving. So if you're not right on the cusp, then it's it's almost obsolete. So make sure that they're in the trenches today, still doing deals, which we certainly are. And we pride ourselves on it. We still buy in our personal buy and sell entities in Southern New England, on top of helping around the country do the same thing. So we're in the trenches. Make sure your mentor is in the trenches. Next, make sure it's a proven system. We've proven it based on our personal buy and sell entities. We are almost like the mice that we kind of all the experiments we put on our company, and once we figured out that it's proven and we can systemize it and automate it and make it useful to our students and our associates, then that's when we implement it. We wouldn't do it if it didn't work, and we've learned tens of thousands of dollars worth of lessons. If it didn't work, then we don't present it. So make sure that you're following someone who has a proven system.
So
Then just lastly, I would just say make sure that you're in line with whoever the mentor is, in alignment with their core values, who they are. You're inspired by them. You think they're a great leader, because once you have that personal tie with them, then you're way more likely to follow their advice, right?
okay, cool. I mean, so there's also like this buzzword, right, in the real estate investing game, and I always call it game.
Yeah.
There's always this buzzword of no money down, right? And
Yeah.
it's such a catchy buzz for the right reasons, right? If I'm, starting out my journey in the investing game, and somebody's telling me no money down, I'm like, that's exactly me. I've got no money, and I want to I want to get in the game. So what does that mean for you guys when you guys, obviously I know you guys, teach a lot about, lease option and, seller financing and all creative financing, but can you just kind of like, expand a little bit on what no money down really means in real estate investing game?
Yeah, no, it definitely is like a buzzword, and it's only a buzzword if it's not proven, right? So, we've bought hundreds upon hundreds of houses this way, so I know that it works. As far as no money down, it means that you're really buying property on a contract with a definitive date in the future on to cash it out. But the end result really is you are going to eventually sell it before the end date is there. So you have no money coming out of your pocket. So let's just kind of walk through some brief things. So a lease purchase. A lease purchase simply means that you and the seller are going to agree upon a price today. You're going to lock in their equity. You'll take over any and all of their expenses. And then you'll have a definitive date. Before that date, you're going to cash them out. What you're going to do, though, is you're going to go find a tenant buyer who needs some time. They're going to give you a non-refundable deposit. They're going to be paying basically all the expenses, plus you're getting a fee, or you're really getting a rent from them, creating a nice spread. And then you're going to have them buy the property before the end of the date. So you have no skin in the game. What you're doing is you're tying up the property on a contract. And the only way to do this is to understand the contracts and understand the scripts on how to find out if they're a good fit, the seller is a good fit for you or not. And then once you do that, then again, you have no skin in the game. The buyer does, and then you're essentially being a bridge to home ownership.
So if I'm a Dwell listening to our conversation, I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And I'm thinking, how can I go out there today and find a seller that is willing to, get into this lease option agreement you're referring to? What's kind of like that first step?
Yeah, I would say your first step would be, I could direct you to our webinar, which is definitely a great first step to figure out, which is smartrealestatecoach.com/webinar. But what actually will be even better for you is let's give you some free stuff too for today. So I would go to freesrecbook.com. And this is absolutely free. So it's free, srecbook.com. We're going to give you our Amazon selling book, Real Estate on Your Terms, which will walk you through our history and how we buy and sell. Again, absolutely free. We're not going to ask you for your credit card. You just have to give us the information so we can send it. I'm not going to ask you for share handling either. So that's what I would do first. That's going to really give you the insight of how we buy and sell on our business. Next step I would look for is potential prospects to talk to. So we call them for sale by owners or expireds. Once you have the scripts and you understand how the business model works, then it's just talking to people. I mean, just like real estate in general, I know we have this solid asset of real estate, but real estate is really just a people-to-people business. So the next step would just be getting used to talking to people and then understanding the process, which will definitely lead people down through this process, which which will bring them to the end result of you buying the property on terms.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all those freebies. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So I think we need to get into the mechanics of an actual deal, right? So maybe perhaps we can drill down on a case study of a particular deal that you guys did and was extremely successful. And then if you do have one on the other end of the spectrum of a deal that you guys did and wasn't so great.
Yeah. So we can start with we'll just do a basic deal. Let's do an owner financing deal. I haven't touched much on owner financing, but this will allow us to dig into that world as well. So owner financing means that you are going to close on the property with the seller, typically with little to no money down. And then the seller is going to hold the mortgage. You're then going to make monthly payments with a balloon date. So you hold title, seller's basically your bank, and you're making payments. So we have a property up here in southern Massachusetts, right on the coast. The house was worth, I think she was on the market for $945,000. Really beautiful house right on the water. She hasn't been able to sell it for about a year, and it really comes down to she's just a very particular person, and she wanted a couple things. Which number one, she wanted to be able to know that the house is sold, but she also didn't want to move yet. So she wanted more time in the property, but wanted to know that, okay, in like a year from now, she's good to go. So by buying on terms and getting creative, you're able to help out sellers that a normal person wouldn't be able to help. So what we did is we closed on the property. I think we put down $10,000. And really, we didn't put down $10,000 of our own cash. What we did was we pulled money from a deal that just closed, and we pulled out some profit and we put it and we rolled into this house. So as you get a bunch of deals going on, you're not pulling out your own cash, you're pulling out profit. So we put down $10,000. We crafted up $2,500 principal only payments on the house. So every single month, making $2,500 payments, and it's coming directly off the purchase price. So principal only. That's a huge thing. It leverages you against the market. Plus, it creates these large paydays on the back end. And of course, you have to take over taxes and insurance and everything because you own the house. We then set a balloon date at 48 months. For that 48 months, everything, the rest of the balloon payment would be due, obviously minus the payments you made over the last 48 months. Net profit on this, we have what we call 3 paydays. Our net profit will probably be anywhere from 150 to 225, depending on the exit strategy that we go. So 150,000 to 225,000. And how we make money on this is we first collect a non-refundable deposit from a seller. So we're selling it through our rent-to-own program. We then create a spread every single month. So we rent a high price. And then we have, of course, the principal pay down that's coming off the back end of the house. That plus the premium, the leftover premium, which we sold it to. So what we did, so that's a typical. So what we did to for her to actually make this deal successful is we allowed her to stay in the property for a year and I think it's actually extending now. And she's crediting us every single month the $250 the $2,500 every month, and then she's doing all the carrying costs. So she's paying for the taxes and insurance and keeping up with the house. So with this example, we're going to get some great paydays. We're going to make some good money. We bought the property at a good price. We put little to no money down, and the seller's happy because she knows she's getting a balloon payment in 48 months, and she has the ability to live in the house still without being the homeowner and not having to worry about it. So I hope that wasn't too complicated of a deal, but I just wanted to put that out there because you can get really creative. So if you have a seller that has some expectation or is looking for something that normally provide, that's a perfect opportunity for our terms market.
Yeah, that's like a really, really fascinating story and quite unique actually. So she's kind of like paying you guys to stay in her home because she knows that this is basically not my home anymore, and I can just like up and leave in a year. So it's just basically like it's more of a stress issue here because obviously the home buying process or home selling process can be really stressful. So I think this is a very, very unique one. Thank you so much for sharing that one. I don't really have any follow-up questions just because, I mean, we can really get into the weeds with this kind of deal. So maybe take us on a deal that didn't go so well. And, what did you guys kind of do to mitigate or, get back on track?
It was actually my first deal, and I was trying to prove myself, right? I just got in the business. I'm 25 years old, and I'm trying to get a deal done. So I go buy this property, and we buy it subject to the existing loan, which means that we close on the property, title transfers to us, but the mortgage stays in the seller's name. We're contractually obligated to the mortgage. We make those payments every month. Of course, we also own the house with taxes, insurance, everything. We own it. I didn't do the best research in the world, and I should have definitely done more due diligence. So come to find out that there's actually lead in the property. I didn't know that at the time. We found out once we placed a buyer in the house, which has 4 kids and they're young. So, it's just that's not good. So the lady, the tenant buyer, actually does she does like a at-home lead test. We find out that there's lead, and we then call up a professional to de-lead it because once you know there's lead in it, you got to take care of it. Ends up costing us $30,000 right off the bat. So as you can imagine, if you don't have credit lines set up, which I highly recommend, that could put you out of business. If that was my first deal. So if you don't have the right proper things set up, then that could definitely put you out of business. So, we go through it, we get everything all set. It's all done. Unfortunately, nowadays, the buyer's actually going to default. We've had it for a couple of years, and they're coming to the end of their term, and they actually defaulted. So this does happen. It is part of the industry. It's unfortunate, even if you do your vetting process and you set everything up. Sometimes people just default. It's roughly about 10% of our buyers. So luckily, the property has appreciated roughly about $70,000, or pretty close to $80,000. So we are going to make a nice net profit on this. I think it's going to come out to somewhere around our average, which is roughly $75,000 per deal, per 3 paydays. So it's going to come out right on average. Unfortunately, we have to put money up front, but that does happen, and life moves on. So we handled it properly. We got everything all set up, and I learned some key lessons, like doing your due diligence. Don't necessarily trust the seller, and make sure you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, especially before you buy a house. Also, we've now included it in all of our contracts for lead, mold, and asbestos. So, that was a $30,000 lesson learned, but now we have extra protection. So as long as every time you take on a property and you have a lesson learned or a bad deal, you may consider it. As long as you make progress and you take that lesson learned and move forward, then maybe $30,000 will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future.
Man, yeah, that's such a good one. I think something that we might think is so insignificant, like, oh, is there lead or there's no lead, or like a simple question could actually lead to 30 grand. It's just really interesting. I really wish we can just keep going. Getting more case studies or keep talking, but we definitely dwell into the quick rounds. So these are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready, sir?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. First question. What makes Zach unique? What is that differentiating, factor that separates you from the next guy or the next girl?
I would say that I'm definitely a huge visionary. I like everything really big picture. So I always focus on big picture, long-term items. I'm definitely like a strategy type guy, a big picture guy. So that I would say that the fact that like when I'm reading books like Scaling Up, which is basically a business about or a book about scaling your business, and it's almost like a textbook on the weekends for fun. That may separate me from the other people.
I think it definitely does, and that's a good segue actually to the next question. What was the last book that you read, and what was the one thing that you picked up from that book?
Yeah, really interesting book, and I keep saying this in other podcasts, is Michael Singer's book, The Surrender Experiment. It's really changed my way of thinking. It's not a real estate book. It's about, instead of constantly trying to put your will onto the world and your desires and trying to craft the world around you necessarily, he states that by surrendering to the world and not having necessarily an agenda, that the world will actually bring you much better than you could ever imagine. It's deep. It's good.
Wow. Yeah, that I've never heard of that one before. That's an amazing insight, actually.
Yeah, Michael Singer. He's a billionaire. He owns, or is the CEO of WebMD now.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Okay, that's really cool. So last question. You've got a ton going on. You've got your family. You've got your work. You're doing great work. What do you do for fun?
Well, this Friday I'm going to go to the Celtics game. I'm a big sports fan, so I love sports. That's certainly why I like sports. I like to read, and also I just love hanging out with my family and friends and just enjoying the simple things in life.
I love it. So if there's somebody listening to this and they're like, oh wow, I really like Zach, I want to connect with Zach, what is the best way people can reach out to you, connect with you, get to know you more?
Yeah, I would say start from the basics. Like I said earlier, I'd love to give everyone that's listening our Amazon bestselling book for free, no shipping, no handling, at free SRECbook.com. So that stands for free Smart Real Estate Coach book.com. If you want to set up a strategy call where we can chat further, you can always email support@smartrealestatecoach.com. But as far as our business model and how to help people, start with the book, go to the webinar, and really dived in deeper there, and then set up a strategy call, and I'd be happy to chat with you further.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Zach, for being here today. I really, really appreciate your time, and maybe hopefully we'll get you back in the future.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. This has been fun. Thanks for having me.